Growth mindset. Why do we even want that? What is it exactly? And more importantly, how do you develop it? All that and more in this video. Hey, it's Wei from the Six Figure Academy, where we eliminate stress, worry, and anxiety around money by re-engineering bad money stories that we grew up with so that we can increase money flow, optimize your mindset, and create life mastery. If you like this kind of stuff and you don't have time to watch this right now, but want to, click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then maybe save this to watch later. Or you can just watch it now. So in this video today, we're going to talk about the growth mindset and how to develop a growth mindset. Now here's the thing, because of everything that's been going on, I know it's been a while since we've actually done a YouTube video on the Six Figure Academy channel, but a lot of us are now stuck at home. And the prevailing thought is, or the question is, when you're stuck at home, does that mean that you stop growing? Well, the answer is resounding no. I mean, it's like saying that if something is happening in the world, do we stop eating so that we can continue to keep ourselves healthy and growing? If you're young and you're actually still growing physically, do you stop growing? Well, we're not exactly talking about a growth mindset in terms of growing physically per se. We're talking about developing yourself as in an entirety of growth. Growing your mind, growing your body, growing your emotional maturity or your emotional intelligence, so to speak. Growing yourself energetically, and then growing yourself physically. So no, we don't stop growing just because everything is happening in the world. But the sad thing is a lot of people have decided not to. They decided to go into a holding pattern. So more importantly, let's talk about why one would use any life circumstance to not grow. Okay, that leads back, before we dive into why we want to do a growth mindset and what that's all about, is to understand a lot of what it is that we do. We help people with their bad money stories, their limiting beliefs. And that literally is what gives people that unconscious excuse that when something is happening in the world, that we stop and freeze like a rabbit per se, or something like that, and like a deer in front of headlights, and say, no, I'm not gonna do anything. I'm not gonna do anything with my business. I'm not gonna do anything with my life. And the reason is, yeah, I have to stay at home, so I'm just gonna sit down and veg out in front of Netflix all day long and not even take advantage of learning from what I'm watching on Netflix. So now, let's talk about why it's important to have a growth mindset to begin with, okay? Kind of what I was just talking about. If we're not growing, especially as an entrepreneur, then don't expect your business to. See, as an entrepreneur, your business is an extension of you. So if you decide to not maintain a growth mindset and you decide that you want to literally stop growing, you want to keep things same, guess what's gonna happen to your business? Not just a business owner, but as an entrepreneur, your business reflects you. You stop growing, your business stops growing. And then if you have employees, it will trickle down to your employees and they will stay stagnant. So another thing I want to talk about why it's important to have a growth mindset, because it's less about growth than about growth from learning. Anybody can grow, literally. The minute you're born, you're growing. The growth we're talking about is learning. And why you want to maintain that growth mindset is to maintain your ability to learn and continue to expand what is possible from your unique footprint on this planet in this lifetime. Another reason why you want to maintain a growth mindset is because it allows us to learn from any and all life circumstances. When you are in a state of having a growth mindset, your mind is actually literally looking for ways to grow. It keeps us from getting derailed or stuck and when external circumstances happen to us. For example, a lot of what we're dealing with right now in terms of what people have to deal with world circumstances, social circumstances that are in the face of our business, if you do not have a growth mindset, you're going to see everything that is wrong, everything that's problematic. Whereas if you're in a growth mindset, which is also known as a solution-based thinking, you're looking to learn from everything that shows up for you. And that's why we just talked about a growth mindset is growth from learning. Having a growth mindset creates stickiness in terms of progress we make in success. So of course, because of the Six Figure Academy, if you want your money flow to grow, then a growth mindset is an absolute requisite. Your money flow literally reflects your state of existence. And if you're stuck in other words, not maintaining a growth mindset, and you're stuck, guess what? So will your money flow. So let's talk about what a growth mindset actually is. A growth mindset is actually a state of being. If you, for example, set it as a goal of attainment, growth mindset will be fleeting and short-lived. In other words, if you set it as like, okay, I'm gonna do this so that I can have a growth mindset, and you go in a particular direction, it's going to be short-lived, and you won't be able to maintain that. Your actual goal is to integrate it deep into your neurology as a state of existence and lifestyle philosophy. I mean, we talked a little about why it's important, but the what of what that growth mindset is not so much something that we're achieving, much like happiness or success. It's a philosophy. It's a state of existence. Okay? And that's what having a growth mindset actually is creating your unique state of existence that allows you to continuously grow. Now, there are two primary types of a growth mindset, and then that will lead us into how you would actually develop that. And the first one is called an internal growth, also known as personal growth, personal development. Whenever you're investing and putting time into developing your personal self, that is called an internal growth mindset. External growth mindset is the second type of growth mindset, which is all about things that can be externalized, things that the rest of the world can see, such as your business, such as your relationships, such as your health and fitness, okay? So now we get to how do we develop that growth mindset. And it's all about the sequence of internal and external. Remember, there's two significant types of growth mindsets to have, an internal growth mindset and an external growth mindset. And the ways to develop that is about how you structure the development of those two and the sequence. The first one I want to talk about is my personal favorite, is developing the internal growth mindset first. This is the one that most people don't do. Okay, because most of us, through our system, society, and our culture and our academic system, we're taught to do it in reverse. We're taught to develop what everybody else can see first, what everybody else can grade first, and then when you feel like it, if you feel so desire, you go into the internal. Now here's the pros and cons about actually doing the reverse and focusing on developing your internal growth mindset first versus external. The pros is this: developing your internal personal self, your personal growth systems or infrastructure so that you're consistently growing internally is probably the most sustainable and long-lasting approach. You will always have your internal learnings and growth. When you invest in developing a growth mindset that is part of your internal and your state of being, then no matter what happens externally, you will always have your internal growth. External growth can potentially be ephemeral or short-lived, especially if there's a huge disparity between how your external part of you is growing versus the internal. Despite its stickiness, it is very imperceptible in the beginning. So if you're just starting out into this journey of doing internal growth mindset development and just kind of working on yourself, oftentimes you won't notice the change. It's very imperceptible, it's very small. But the reality is that the consistency of just doing this particular way of developing a growth mindset, it actually creates an exponential boom. And what happens is a lot of people, when they don't know about that, they avoid taking this approach because it's slow, arduous, and could be sometimes extremely painful in how slow it takes for change to happen. Now, let's talk about the second way to develop a growth mindset, which is the opposite of what we talked about, and that is external growth mindset development first, then internal. Like I said, this is the one that is most common. This is the one that most of us have been trained to do and approach in terms of growth. The pros is that it speeds the belief that the seeing is believing expectation. The growth is significantly more noticeable sooner. And not just by yourself, but the world around you. It's the fast, quick result, immediate, it's gratification. And during my journey, when given a choice to choose fast or slow, I used to say all the time, I pride myself into being an impatient entrepreneur, which was, great in the sense that people who are also seeing that, yeah, I want results right now, but it was a popular choice because it was so immediate. However, that immediacy comes with a drawback, and so let's talk about the cons. If you like roller coasters, maybe this approach on developing the growth mindset is not a con, but it can actually be quite tasking. It's the roller coaster effect that happens in our lives, not only in business, not only in our money flow, but in our health and fitness, those who struggle with weight, or just those who struggle to stay in shape, and even in roller coasters in relationships. That all is reflective of this approach on creating results in our lives. It's extremely tasking, and the burnout potential is significantly greater because you've got this up and down emotional roller coaster ride. But it's not just emotional, it's mentally emotional, it's energetic, it's physical. It's just really tasks the entire existence of self. Because it seems like you're growing. It gives you the perception, oh my God, I hit this goal. Everybody can see it. Everybody thinks I'm growing. The difference is that you exhaust yourself prematurely. You unnecessarily task the entire system of your existence. That is a con of this particular approach. Now, the last way of developing a growth mindset is what we call the simultaneous or concurrent development, whereas you develop the internal and the external at the same time. A lot of my one-on-one clients in BFA, we elect this method of approach because they are receiving a high level of support. But if you're not, it's actually a good way to create like a sprint, like a short burst of like a challenge. A lot of people do challenges like that, where they work on themselves and they work on the external all at the same time. But if you can imagine, if you're investing a lot of time and energy and working on the internal growth mindset, and you're putting a lot of energy to developing the external growth mindset, that's a lot of output. That's a lot of investment of time, energy, and maybe even money. The pros are that you do create a sprint-like effect for results that are sustainable and long-term, but this is why you also don't sprint long distance, because if you don't do it in an interval type of way, it can actually task your entire system of existence more so than the previous one, which is external first, then internal. So this can be a challenge. So it's really good for those who don't have the support of a coach or a mentor or a guide who can kind of keep them from falling off the track, to create short bursts of growth. And then so what it would look like is like you would actually grow up, and then you would plateau, and then you grow up, and then you plateau, and you go up and you plateau. The challenge around that, and this is where we go into the cons, is that it can potentially be confusing, because sometimes you can confuse the external with an internal work. You could be going back and forth unnecessarily, and then what will happen is it gets confused. And so you might be thinking that you're working on some internal growth mindset when in fact you're working on an external circumstance, and vice versa. It is by far probably one of the quickest and fastest way by doing both at the same time. Not only quick and fast, but sustainably quick and fast. It just requires the utilization for a lot more resources, a lot more support. And then if you're not used to that, and you don't have the support, it can actually burn you out even faster than the previously mentioned way. Hopefully you got some inspiration on how you can use one of those three ways, or maybe switch between the three ways, to start to develop and embody a growth mindset. So what's next? What's next is to decide which path you want to take, or what sequence of ways you want to develop that growth mindset. Again, there's pros and cons to both. And the most important thing is to recognize what those pros and cons are, and kind of check in with yourself to see what you're willing to cope with or deal with or navigate when it comes to developing that growth mindset. All are equally effective in their own unique way. The key is to decide and take action in that direction. If you liked this video and what I shared with you, then hit the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, then you know what to do. Hit the thumbs down. And maybe consider giving feedback in the comments below. Remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you really liked it, you can do what I do with a lot of YouTube videos that I like and save it into your library. Now, if you want to get our free guide on how to go from money anxiety to six-figure mastery and achieve that lifestyle that you want, there's a link for that in the description below. Go there, click on it, and follow the directions, and we'll send it right to your email box. Other than that, let me know your thoughts on this topic, any questions that you may have, or request future topics in the comments below.